films, and she was very positive about that and how sexually positive they were and how, you know, powerful they were and so on and so on. And I agree with her. I think that's right, but not too many people have ever actually talked to me about that. But it did remind me of about, it must be at least 25 years ago, there was a French critic who said, when you look at the sex and the sexuality in Cronenberg's movies, you know that he must be very good at sex. That's the best review I've ever read.
So what I was going to ask you about that was that one of the
Don't get too personal.
One of the things that I noticed that you do in your films frequently that not a lot of other people who direct sex scenes do is that people will have conversations, and they do it here too in this film, and that feels very believable and very realistic, but almost no one ever puts that in their films, and I'm wondering, is that...
Yeah. There's a well-known New York film critic whose name Amy Tobin, I won't mention. But I adore her. But there was a podcast where she was complaining that there was this sex scene between Diane and Vincent, and she said it's just sex going on and on and on, and they're just grunting and grunting, and they're not, it's just endless. And I later said to her, Amy, that is a dialogue scene. I mean, did you miss the dialogue? And she confessed that she hadn't heard the dialogue the first time she saw the movie. I said, it's actually a dialogue scene, and the dialogue's very important. So, most of my sex scenes are really dialogue scenes in disguise.
Say it's not just pillow talk; it's actual things are being said.
And there were no pillows in that scene. He was doing the Japanese thing with tatami mats and stuff, so no pillows.
One of the things, again, something that is said right at the beginning of the film is about how the body, I think the references to teeth rotting and trauma, that sorrow.
Grief is rotting your teeth.
Right, and it's not the first time you've discussed the way that different kinds of trauma, whether it's grief or physical trauma, have an impact on the body as a whole. I guess it makes sense, but I don't know if that's more of a philosophy or if that's a medically proven thing. But I love that you discuss that, because again, I don't think I've ever heard anybody else talk about it in those terms before.
Yeah, I think it's just an observation. I mean, I think everybody, at a certain point in your life, you're going to realize and see that your emotional state has huge impact on the body, and it has been known for some time, but now it can be actually through, the medical version of a shroud, where you can actually see what's going on in the brain with the brain cells and the neurons. You can actually see the impact of stress, trauma on the body, and it's quite extreme, and it really changes your body, sometimes forever. So but to me, it's just an observation before it became a medical fact. It was just, I think, poetically, poets have mentioned that for thousands of years, so I'm only in that line. I'm not the first, I'm not the very first.
I want to ask if you sort of are known, one of the things you're known for as a director is actually not being a heavy-handed director when it comes to your actors.
I'm not allowed to be now.
Well, that's true. You need intimacy coordinators now for that. No. But just that you give them a script and you kind of let them create. But with Diane Kruger in this film, and she's playing 3 different characters, did you give her any guidance about the differences in the 3 and how to play them differently?
Well, it's interesting with Diane because she came to Toronto to start work, and she was shocked to see that there were no rehearsals that were booked in her schedule. And I said, "Well, Diane, I don't rehearse." And she was used to doing what we call as table read, which is a sort of theatrical term, where you sit around a table, the actors sit around a table with the director, and they read the script, as though it's a radio play. and start to discuss the subtleties of the interchanges of dialogue and stuff like that. And I said I did do that once. I tried that with the fly, and I discovered that as soon as we were actually shooting the movie with the real costumes and the real sets and the real crew, everything that we had done in the rehearsal was irrelevant. Everything changed. The dynamic changed completely. And I thought, well, then it's really kind of a waste of time. I mean, it really is not doing anything. So, really, the script is the first director. You know, the actors read the script, and that's where they take their first direction from. Especially when it's a script that I've written, it's very precise about the dialogue and so on. So, I am hands-off. I really, the first time I actually hear the dialogue is when we're blocking the scene. You know, in the morning, we're going to shoot. We start to figure out, it's just me, the actors, the cameraman, sound guys. It's, you know, do you stand at the window with your back to the other actor, and then only on this line do you turn? And that's where you're starting to get specific about direction. But I don't want to micromanage the actors. I want them to show me what their instinct tells them these lines should be, the way these lines should be read, for example. So it's, I tell film students that one of the things that they don't usually hear in film school is the part that casting has in directing. Part of directing is being a good casting, and working with a good casting director, because that's more than half the battle. When you cast the right actor in the role, it's almost automatic that it's going to be good.
So Diane really did just come up with those variations.
Yeah.
About that
Yeah,
stuff. She's
absolutely.
she's the heart and soul of this movie. I think she's tremendous.
Well, yeah, three roles, and
Yeah.
I've read that I think some people who saw the movie misunderstood. She is acting the role of Honey. She was in a motion control outfit, and she was doing all the moves as well as just the voice.
Right.
It wasn't. Some people thought she was just doing the voice of Honey, but no, she was acting it all with in a motion capture suit with sensors all over her, and 14 cameras around her in a warehouse, basically, and having to act those lines of dialogue.
The last thing I want to ask you is I want to read a quote. I think it's about this film or in relation to this film from you, and I just want to ask you to expand on it a little bit. The death of a loved one is impossible and meaningless. And yet I don't think you mean that in a negative way. I think that,
No, once again, I think it's a tough but accurate observation, and I think it's, speaking of evolution, which I do often, I think we have evolved to look for meaning everywhere. And when someone you love dies, it occurs to you, and maybe you deny it to yourself, that this is a meaningless thing, unless you believe that God wanted this person and took them to heaven for some unknown reason. But if you don't believe that, and the equivalence of that, then you say, how is this possible? And often people do look at each other and say, we can't believe this person is gone. You're right to say that. It's absurd, it's impossible, it's ridiculous, and it's meaningless. And so one of the other things that conspiracy theories can do in that case, and I've seen this happen, is to come up with a conspiracy theory that the doctors wanted this person to die, that the clinic has some strange, sinister reason for wanting this person to die, or somebody is hit by a car. Was it really just chance? I mean, of all the people on the street, this person killed the loved one of yours? And it's a way of giving meaning to something that probably basically does not have meaning.
Before I let you go, I want to ask that you have gone on record recently about saying that maybe talking about the theatrical experience and maybe how it's a little overrated in certain degrees. And I'm wondering if you come to a place like this, with this many people showing up for you, do you perhaps have second thoughts about that? Or?
Well, frankly, I can't see anybody because I know it's an hour. So as far as I'm concerned, what I'm hearing is basically a laugh track.
Oh no, okay, I thought we could break through on that. Everyone, David Cronenberg, thank you so much, sir, for coming out. Thank you guys for sticking around. Please, the movie can be here for a couple weeks. Tell everyone how much you love it.
Later. Totally fact.